husband's ex-wife hired a lawyer to make me pay child support for her daughter, but now she has to pay me. I feel incredibly disrespected when all I've ever done is be respectful. I'm having a problem with my late husband's ex-wife, who is demanding that I pay child support, even though my husband passed away just a month ago. Dante passed away last month at the age of 34 when a building collapsed on him. He didn't even make it to the hospital. He died instantly. I got the call about the incident while I was at work, but by the time I got there, he was already gone. Seeing his lifeless body felt like being trapped in a nightmare. I never thought I'd feel so powerless in my life. I was devastated because we had just gotten married 2 months before. Dante had been so excited about the wedding because he saw it as his second chance at happiness. His marriage to his ex-wife, Helen, hadn't worked out, but they had a 7-year-old daughter together, Taya. Throughout my entire relationship with Dante, Helen was always around. She was the classic problematic ex. She took every opportunity to squeeze money out of him and disrupt our plans. Despite all of this, I was always kind and welcoming to Taya because none of this was her fault. I even agreed to have Taya visit us during the holidays because she was part of my family, too. But no matter how polite I was, Helen never liked me. She told me plenty of women had come before me and that I wouldn't get the ring. When Dante and I announced our engagement, she nearly had a heart attack. I remember the look of disbelief on her face. She couldn't even fake her congratulations. It was obvious she didn't mean it. Anyone would have noticed. Well, it's clear she never liked me from the start. Even though I was indifferent to her, when Dante passed, she reached out to me because she said she understood my pain. Because of their history, he still held a special place in her heart, obviously. She was the only person I could really talk to about how I was feeling at the time. I didn't think anyone else truly understood the pain I was going through. I haven't been myself for a long time. I've been trying to get through all the paperwork and sort out his estate, which has been exhausting. I wish I could put it off until I feel stronger, but I can't. I've been handling his estate for the past month, and I'm almost done. Dante set up a college fund for his daughter, but he left everything else to me. I now own his house, his car, and all of his savings. When Helen found out, her kindness suddenly disappeared. She had the audacity to ask me when I convinced Dante to change his will. I snapped at her for even suggesting that I influenced him. I had no idea when Dante changed his will, but it was his choice. If he had left me with nothing, I would have been fine with that. It wasn't my fault that he was always so thoughtful, you know? Helen kept making assumptions about Dante's will to the point that I stopped engaging with her. The only time I interacted with her was when we ran into each other somewhere, like the mall. The moment I saw her, I'd turn around and walk the other way. I thought that if I ignored her, she'd disappear, but that wasn't the case. She was planning something even worse. A few days ago, Helen brought Taya over to visit me. She said Taya missed me a lot, so I let her stay. I assumed Helen wouldn't stick around, so imagine my surprise when she made herself comfortable in my house. She started commenting on how nice everything looked and asked if I had started redecorating yet. Then she said it must be nice not to have to struggle financially. At that moment, I started wondering what her real intentions were with those comments. That's when Helen told me she'd been struggling to take care of Taya. Dante used to pay child support, but now that he was gone, Taya wasn't getting anything. Helen assumed I would continue making the payments, but I hadn't so far. I politely told her that Taya wasn't my biological daughter, so I wasn't obligated to support her. Besides, Dante had left her enough money for her. Response was that I was being selfish and unreasonable. She claimed she had been waiting for a day like this when I would make Taya suffer just because I was her stepmother. I defended my love for Taya and told Helen that things weren't financially stable for me at the moment. But if we could revisit this topic later, maybe we could come to an agreement. Well, obviously, she didn't want to hear that, which just frustrated me even more, and I lost it. The next thing I knew, I saw red. I asked Helen if this was why she had reached out to me at the funeral. Was she trying to make sure I'd keep paying Taya's support, or was she trying to get even more money out of me? She denied everything and claimed I was accusing her of things she would never do. That's when I reminded her how she had made my relationship with Dante difficult from the start. She ruined our date nights, drained his money, showed up at his house unannounced, and did everything in her power to sabotage our relationship. But we still made it through. From the beginning, she had always tried to make my life difficult because she resented me. She knows she can afford to take care of Taya, but she wants that responsibility to fall on me. I love Taya, but she isn't my biological daughter, and she's certainly not an orphan. Her mother is alive and financially stable. Then Helen said I didn't understand her situation, that she had a lot of expenses and debts I didn't know about. I asked her if she thought she was the only person in the world with expenses. I had them too, and I was also grieving and trying to keep my job. I was struggling to get through each day, and I didn't need her adding more stress to my life. All I was asking for was time to revisit this conversation in a few months when I was in a better emotional state. Then we could come up with a plan that worked for both of us because I genuinely wanted to help Taya. But nothing I said got through to Helen. She grabbed Taya and left. Before walking out, she told Taya that I didn't want her in the house, which was a complete lie. I tried to explain to Taya, but Helen rushed her out. Now my husband's daughter hates me because of her manipulative mother, and here I am, stuck with all these conflicting thoughts in my head. Update 1. It's been 2 months since my last post, and during that time, I've started to heal. I've also been supporting Taya as best as I can. I read all your comments, and they helped me make a decision. Now I realize that I was being too hard on Taya because of my conflicted relationship with Helen. It's not Taya's fault that her mom and I don't get along. At the end of the day, Taya lost her father, and I need to be there for her. After giving it some thought, I reached out to Helen to find out how much she needed. Although I couldn't give her the full amount that Dante used to provide, I offered what I had. I had to reorganize a few things, but I eventually found a way to contribute to Taya's expenses. For the past 2 months, I've been paying child support to Helen, and things have been going fine. Helen keeps me updated on how Taya is doing, and I see her every other weekend so we can spend time together. Just the two of us, without Helen around. Taya is still very sad about her dad. She's old enough to understand that he's in heaven, but she misses him a lot. What made things even harder for her was that Helen doesn't have any photos of Dante in her house. When I found out, I decided to give Taya some pictures of her dad. I didn't do it with any bad intentions. I just wanted the little girl to have a picture of her father. However, Helen flew into a rage. She messaged me, asking when I'd ever asked her permission to give those photos to Taya. I thought Helen wouldn't mind, because, well, Dante was Taya's dad. But Helen explained that she doesn't like having photos of her ex around and that I should have consulted her first. I felt she was overreacting, but I decided to back down. Instead, I made a photo album for Taya that she can have when she's older. This issue with the photos isn't the only time I've clashed with Helen. She's been asking for more and more money, claiming she has extra expenses. When I told her I couldn't give her any more, she tried to make me feel guilty. I had to remind her of the agreement we made. I'm not even obligated to help her, and I do it from the heart. If she keeps pressuring me, I might just stop helping altogether. I don't know why I was so naive as to think she'd be grateful. Has Helen ever been thankful for anything in her life? No, she's always acted entitled, as if the whole world owes her something, when that's not the case. She feels like she deserves the money without showing even a bit of gratitude. I don't want to break my word, but I'm getting tired of dealing with her. It's not even about the money anymore. She complains about everything related to Taya. After every visit, she gripes that I'm teaching Taya bad manners. The poor girl just lost her dad. Doesn't she deserve a little comfort? For example, the other day, Helen lost it because I gave Taya a little ice cream on a hot day. She accused me of trying to make her daughter gain weight, as if a bit of ice cream could really hurt her. I tried to reason with Helen, reminding her that Taya is in mourning and sometimes needs small gestures to cheer. Her response? Don't tell me how to be a mother. So I decided to back off because I don't want her to stop Taya's visits. But I don't know how much longer I can put up with Helen's antics. Update 2. So that's it, I'm done. I can't take it anymore, I'm fed up. I'm not going to pay any more child support for Taya. Not when her mom is so ungrateful. I've never met anyone with such a sense of entitlement in my life. Remember when I mentioned that Helen was demanding more money? Well, the situation has only gotten worse in just 1 month. On top of that, she's decided to hire a lawyer to hound me. Things have spiraled out of control quickly, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. A few weeks ago, Helen demanded that I double the child support payments. She claimed what I was paying wasn't enough to cover Taya's basic expenses. Apparently, she thinks she knows what I can afford and believes I've been skimping. I exchanged a few words with her. I won't repeat them here, but basically, I reminded her that she should be grateful for what she's already receiving. Our argument ended with her threatening to sue me for support. She dared me to do it because she was ready to fight until the end. I never thought she'd actually go through with it. So imagine my surprise when I received an email from her lawyer demanding that I double the payments. The lawyer threatened legal action if I didn't comply, just as Helen had said. I replied to the lawyer that there was no way I was going to do that, and well, that was like opening Pandora's box. Over the past few weeks, Helen and her lawyer have taken turns harassing me. Her lawyer, in particular, is on the verge of being unprofessional with all his threats. He's even said they'll put me in jail and seize all my assets. I don't even think that's possible just for child support. I've repeatedly told them to leave me alone and that I'm not going to pay more than what I've already been giving. In fact, they're pushing me to the point where I don't even want to pay a single extra dollar, not 1 cent. Not even a debt collector would hound me like this. I'm exhausted. Every morning I wake up to an avalanche of insulting and threatening messages from Helen. The threats have escalated to the point of insinuating physical violence against me. After receiving several of those threats, I got scared and decided to consult my own lawyer. Honestly, I didn't want to get the law involved. The last thing I need right now is a legal battle, but Helen and her lawyer have forced my hand. I had no choice but to spend money I don't have to hire legal help. In truth, I feel relieved I did because my lawyer told me that what they're doing is completely illegal. Unless I've legally adopted Taya, I'm not obligated to pay child support for her, only her biological parents are. Even though Dante passed away, that responsibility doesn't fall on me. Well, unfortunately for her, she made a big mistake by involving the law. Now I've decided to be, well, a little vengeful. I'm taking her to court. I not only want to win, but I also want her to pay me back every cent I've already given her. And don't even get me started on her lawyer. He's been illegally intimidating me, and I refuse to lose sleep over this nonsense. So, I'm taking them both to court, and I'm going to make them regret trying to manipulate me. I'll keep you all updated on what happens next. Update 3. I've got some hot gossip that's going to blow your mind. You won't believe what just happened. Remember how a month ago I consulted a lawyer about Helen and her lawyer's intimidation tactics? Well, after that, I decided to file a case against them for harassment. My lawyer did everything necessary and sent them the legal documents. The moment Helen received them, she called me in a panic. She was desperate, asking why things had to go so far. I had to remind her that she was the one who wanted to take it to court in the first place. She was the one who instructed her, pseudo-lawyer, to harass me and threaten me with legal action, so I was just giving her what she wanted. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me any longer. I told her that if she wanted me to pay double child support, I'd rather have a judge decide that, not her. Suddenly, Helen's attitude shifted. She asked if we could meet to discuss the matter like adults. Obviously, I had no interest in talking with her. The only time I'd ever meet her would be in a courtroom, So I told her that negotiations were over and we'd settle this in court. Shortly after, my lawyer contacted me with surprising news. Helen's lawyer could no longer represent her. I was confused and asked what that meant. That's when my lawyer explained that Helen's lawyer was actually her nephew, who's still in law school. Helen had paid her nephew to pose as a lawyer just to intimidate me. When he received the legal documents, they panicked. Helen's nephew even begged my lawyer not to proceed with the case and pleaded with him not to tell me. But, of course, my lawyer was obligated to inform me of everything. Besides, it wasn't even my decision anymore because what they did was illegal. Posing as a lawyer and intimidating someone is a crime, and as a law student, Helen's nephew should have known better. When the case finally reached court, I had everything I needed: messages, emails, you name it, all proving their threats and harassment. The judge was not pleased, especially that Helen's nephew had pretended to be a lawyer. He was extremely insulted. As a result, the state pressed separate cases against Helen and her nephew. They were fined for harassing me, and both received restraining orders. If they ever try to contact me in person or online again, they'll face jail time. To top it off, they also have to refund every penny I sent them for child support. But that's not all. Helen's nephew made the biggest mistake of his life. All his years of studying to become a lawyer have gone down the drain. He was expelled from school and disqualified. He'll never be able to study law again. His actions demonstrated a complete lack of integrity and respect for the legal profession, and the judge used him as an example of what happens when you try to play lawyer. I almost feel sorry for him, but not really. I can't even begin to imagine how crushed he must feel. His dreams of becoming a lawyer are completely ruined, and now he has to start his life over from scratch. He was so close to achieving everything he ever wanted, and now it's all gone because he couldn't stop pretending and bragging. Helen and her nephew should have backed off when I told them to. They should have known they had no legal ground to make baseless threats. But they didn't, and now they've lost everything. Honestly, it's been a wild experience, but I'm glad it's finally over. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can intimidate others. Things like this never end well. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, it looks like this chapter is finally closed. Update 4. I really thought everything was settled, but there's one last thing I need to share with you all. Consider this my way of thanking you for your support through all this chaos. None of this should have happened, and honestly, if Helen had been satisfied with the little I kindly gave her, things wouldn't have escalated this far. Or at least, she wouldn't be in the hospital right now. Well, remember her nephew, the one who got disqualified? It turns out his parents were absolutely furious with Helen for dragging their son into her schemes. You can imagine the time, money, and resources they invested to help him get into law school, only for him to ruin it all. Now he'll never have a chance to become a lawyer, and his future is completely ruined thanks to Helen's selfishness. Helen's sister, who is the nephew's mother, was so angry that she attacked Helen at her workplace. She waited for her in an empty parking lot after work and confronted her. By the time security arrived, it was too late. Helen ended up with a broken nose, some seriously damaged ribs, and a badly bruised face. Who would have thought? I always believed Helen's sister was a sweetheart, but I guess anyone can throw a punch when their son's future is at stake, especially against an adult who should have known better. The sad reality is that Helen should have known better. She should never have involved her nephew in this crazy plan. If she was so desperate, she could have asked a friend to pose as a lawyer, or better yet, never demanded more money from me in the first place. I'm pretty sure she just wanted more money to keep funding her unsustainable lifestyle. It's no secret that she loves designer clothes and expensive trips. Dante and I always suspected she was using some of Taya's money to fund her little luxuries, but we never said anything since Taya was being taken care of. Now, her entire house of cards is collapsing, and honestly, I don't feel an ounce of guilt about it. This is what Helen deserves for harassing me during my grieving time and trying to squeeze money out of me. And to top it off, She had the nerve to intimidate me for months. I was only trying to help her, for God's sake, but she showed no mercy toward me, and now I have none for her. It's been 6 years since I last posted here. I know because Taya is now 13, and this update is about her. For those who don't remember, Taya is Dante's daughter, my late husband, with his ex, Helen. The last I heard from Helen was when her own sister sent her to the hospital after the fight that broke out following the whole fake lawyer and lawsuit fiasco. If you recall, Helen had involved her nephew, still in law school, to pose as a lawyer and harass me. Things ended very badly when her nephew was expelled and disqualified from studying law. After all that scandal, Helen's mother stepped in, basically forcing her to let the matter drop after all the damage she'd caused to her family, especially her nephew. Although Helen's sister ended up being sued for the assault, the situation didn't get too messy for her, since Helen's mother helped smooth over the chaos. As you can see, Helen's family is pretty dysfunctional, but luckily, they're not mine, and I've completely cut ties with all that drama. Helen and I ended our relationship for good after she returned all the money she'd illegally demanded for child support. Of course, that only fueled the fire between us, and we haven't had any contact in all these years, which has been a relief. Now, what I really want to share with you is that after 6 years, Taya reached out to me again. It was completely unexpected. We hadn't had any communication since Helen cut off any possibility of us seeing each other, as she insisted I keep sending her money. Needless to say, that wasn't going to happen, so Taya and I lost touch, even though we always had a great relationship. A few months ago, I got a message on social media from an account I didn't recognize. It turned out to be Taya, who'd been trying to find me for a long time. She said she missed me a lot and wanted to talk again. She explained that her mom, Helen, had been very difficult over the past few years. I was so surprised to get that message. Not only did I think Helen had influenced her to forget about me, but Taya was actually taking the initiative to reach out on her own, despite everything that happened between her mom and me. Since then, I've given her my number and we've been in regular contact. We talk every week, and it feels like those 6 years without communication never happened. She tells me about her life, school, and friends. And I, for my part, share with her how these past years have been for me and how happy it makes me to hear from her again. Reconnecting with Taya has been such a relief because even though I'm not her mother, I've always loved her dearly. Losing contact with her when Helen decided to keep her away from me was incredibly painful. I always knew that I wasn't responsible for her financial support, but that never meant I didn't care about her or didn't value the bond we built while I was with her dad. When Helen completely cut me off after I stopped paying support, it hurt a lot, but I understood that I couldn't do anything more. However, knowing that Taya feels she can count on me and wants to stay in touch has brought me so much peace. Edit. I want to address something some people have been suggesting since my last post, that maybe Helen is behind all of this, that Taya is contacting me for some hidden reason. I've thought about it, and honestly, I don't believe that's the case. Taya hasn't asked me for anything, no money, no favors. We just talk, and our conversations aren't about any complicated issues or about her mom asking for something. Of course, I know I need to stay vigilant, but for now, everything seems genuine. If something strange comes up or I suspect Helen is manipulating Taya, I won't hesitate to cut contact again. I'm not naive, and I'm definitely not willing to go back to that toxic situation. Taya has told me that even though her mom is difficult, Helen has never neglected her or failed to meet her responsibilities. As far as I know, Helen is still keeping Taya in good shape, at least financially. So, although Taya's relationship with her mom is tense, it doesn't seem like she's in any urgent need. Still, I'll keep my eyes open and continue on cautiously.